so the reference from Matthew 23 of Jesus longing for Jerusalem in the same way, that protective, brooding, nurturing, loving, caring sense. It's interesting, he puts the hen in a very positive light in that particular instance. But if you've ever kept chickens, you know that they can be vicious. We have the phrase, a pecking order. Someone's got to rule the roost. There's another phrase we use quite regularly. So there's a negative aspect to their character as well. That's really interesting, the way that they will use dominance, they will use their power to establish themselves. So there's something very, very much, we can see the parallel to the sinful nature, and the way that humankind, we sort of, with pointy elbows, push people out of the way, because we're striving to get to the top of the heap, and so we'll trample, we'll grab and grasp because we want to succeed and get to the top and have our moment in the sun. And if you stand in my way, then you're going to get pushed out, trampled on. That whole kind of idea of human progress, that the strong survive. You see it in the pecking order, and they are brutal. They're vicious. If you introduce new animals to try and merge the flock, then the top chicken, the one who is ruling the roost, the one at the top of the pecking order, along with the rest of the flock, will just go for them. And if you leave it, if you're not careful, if you don't introduce them properly, they will just attack and kill, because they feel threatened. They're feeling as if someone's coming along to usurp their place in the pecking order. And so they will peck and make a lot of noise, and they're pretty brutal. They'll go for the eyes, and they'll go for the comb. If the comb gets cut, it just bleeds and bleeds and bleeds. So you've got to be really careful. And that is the opposite of the way of Jesus.
Yeah.
It's, as Luther talks about a theology of glory, which is that striving to get to the top of the pyramid and getting to the top of the pecking order, of pushing yourself forward, and in a sort of a salvific sense, working and striving to please God and to do more, to get to the top, to get to heaven. And so the theology of glory is then contrasted with the theology of the cross, which is the way of Christ, where the one who is greatest, the one who is the most majestic, the most authoritative, the top of the pecking order, he actually comes down and humbles himself. That's the way of Jesus. That's the way of the cross. That's the true logic of the universe, that upsets that sense of nature red in tooth and claw. The way of Christ is just subverting that whole thing. In fact, even calling it subverting seems subversive, because actually that is the way of God. That is the natural way, the true way. It's just that we've corrupted it. The natural world has corrupted it through, ever since Adam, from the fall, the whole of creation. So mankind, in our imaginations, thoughts, and in our hearts, that's the way we think we get to the top. That's the way we think we please God. But actually, no. It's through sacrifice. It's through suffering. It's through, that which is great coming down to love the unlovely. That's the gospel. That's the way of Jesus. And you just see that in the natural world. You see it in the chicken coop. Someone's going to rule the roost, and they'll get there by being violent and showing who's the biggest hen, the biggest chicken. And
maybe that's why people equate humans with animals, saying humans are animals, because they see that we act beast-like sometimes, and that's the thing that distinguishes humans as humans, is to be like Christ in that, to actually lower ourselves, be a servant to other people, which is completely contrary to how we think it should be, because we're so, like, sin is so ingrained in us. So people see that and they're amazed by it. They think, or they're really confused, thinking like, why are you humbling yourself and loving me in this way when I've done this, this, or this to you? And it actually, that is humanizing. That is the distinction between the natural world and humans.
Yeah, definitely, and that is, I mean, even more so for the Christian, where the fight against the flesh is that complete, that we're to become everyone's servant, that we are to consider the needs of others before our own. We're to see every man as better than ourselves, becoming the servant of all, to be all things to all people, that we might save some. It means being, sacrificing all your desires, all your wants, in order to bring good news to others. That is the way of, and that's the logic. I love that. The logic of the universe is the logic of Christ. It makes most sense. It's most beautiful when we see that, as opposed to that fallen logic, that fallen way, which always marginalizes the weak. It always sets them down so that the stronger, the more superior, those with control and power will hold on to it. Whereas the logic of Christ, I mean, even just in the incarnation itself, of the Word becoming meat, flesh, that God would join the human race by humbling himself to that point of becoming the bread of heaven that we're to feast upon in the house of bread, Bethlehem, and laid in a manger, a feeding trough. It's just totally counterintuitive to the fallen mind. But I think with the eyes of faith, we see the beauty, we see the true logic in it.